64,000 of you showed up to the polls and said goodbye to Jackson County Executive Frank White. Wow, this is years in the making. And I've got to imagine that for tens of thousands of Jackson County residents, that was a day yesterday that you had been waiting for. And good for you. Frank White is done. The nightmare of the Jackson County executive who did not show up to meetings, who didn't give a rip when your property taxes went to the moon, who had no sympathy, no empathy, no self-awareness during one of the biggest scandals I've covered in nearly a decade here in Kansas City, is now gone. And to that I say good riddance. Frank White, I know a lot of you have dealt with him, whether it's personally or in some cases professionally, just bumping into him around town over the last 40, 50 years during his time back as a Major League Baseball player. But for those of us on the younger end of the spectrum, we have no memory of Frank White playing baseball for the Kansas City Royals. There are two generations at least that only know Frank White in this town as the Jackson County executive. And at that, he did a terrible job. Frank White did not get booted out because of any reason other than his own incompetency. And on top of that, his inability to even pretend like he cared. And that is ultimately what bit Frank in the butt. When all these property tax issues were flying all over Jackson County, 2019, 21, 23, Frank White was nowhere to be found. Frank White didn't understand the politics of the job that he was in as the county executive. To sit back for a moment and say, you know what? Boy, I screwed this thing up. Or at least as the leader, I've got to take responsibility for this thing being screwed up, even if I didn't personally do it. And I've got to figure out how to right these wrongs. I've got to at least pretend like I care and pretend like I'm going to do something. The great politicians do that. Even if it's largely disingenuous, they play the game. And Frank White might have sat there and said, I'm not playing that game. Well, you know what? This is the end result of you not playing the game. 85.2% of Jackson County residents voted to recall Frank White. And then there were 14.8% who said, nah, I guess he's doing a good enough job. I don't know who those 14.8% are. If it's you, please let me know why at 913-408-7957. But what we learned about all this is not that former sports stars should not get into politics. That's not the story here. That's not what we learned from Frank White, the hometown kid who plays for the Royals, who's a legend in Kansas City, and now sees his tenure in the public spotlight in this town end in, frankly, shame. The story here is when you run for office, you better know what you're about to embark on. You better understand what you're about to do. And it seems like Frank White never really embraced that. Frank White showed up to one meeting this year as the county executive. The legislature meets on Mondays, and Frank White was at one meeting. One, uno. As Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer might say, uno, one, with their sombreros on. We'll get to that later this morning on KCMO. You know where I'm going there. But that's it. One meeting the entire year. And it ended up in a political bloodbath yesterday, the likes of which you rarely see. You tell me, is there any issue where you're going to get 85% of voters on one side of it? I don't know which issue that would be. I don't know where you could find it in American politics today where Republicans and Democrats come together and 85% of them say, we're on the same page on this one. I don't think that issue exists. Except for right here in Kansas City. Except for right here in Jackson County with Frank White. That's it. So that was unbelievable yesterday. I mean, I set the over-under at like 62.5. But I will say, by the end of the day, I was like, yeah, I think in 70%, right, Mark? I was up to about 70% by the end of the show yesterday. But I didn't want to I didn't want to overstate it and be like, oh, man, everyone I know is going to recall him, so it's going to be like 80%. I didn't want to think I was going to be in my own bubble, so I tried to be a little less optimistic in what I thought that number was going to be.
Like the Chiefs being 2.5-point underdogs last weekend at home.
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Yes. Great analogy there. Exactly. It looked too good to be true. And for a moment, you're like, oh, man, I don't want to take the number. It seems like it's a sucker bet. I don't know about this one. Well, same thing with Frank. I was like, is it really going to push 75, 80%? I mean, as I said, leading up to the vote, the people who are going to show up to vote on a Tuesday in September are going to be those highly motivated to get Frank out. But now the question is, what happens? Where does it all go from here? Well, Sean Smith is on the Jackson County Legislature. He will join us coming up in 20 minutes here on KCMO to tell us what exactly is next and whether or not they can select a Frank White replacement who would only be there for the next 12 months or so. This person would be a temporary county executive until next year's election when, of course, it would be open to anybody and everybody to run for county executive. But the legislature has to pick a replacement for Frank White. And if they can't agree on somebody, then it would go to a judge who would pick the Frank White replacement. And that was Frank's pitch down the stretch. Could be worse than me. You don't know who it's going to be. Could be worse than me. You know what? 85% of Jackson County voters said, I'll roll the dice on that one, Frank. I'll take my chances, Frank. And now the long Jackson County nightmare is over. Oh, my gosh. I know. People are excited this morning. It's good stuff all around, okay?
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time.
Not in Jackson County. And then, of course, they're going to have to tackle the property assessment crisis. That's going to have to be issue number one, because what I don't want to see happen is this just be a feel-good thing where everyone's like, yeah, we got rid of Frank. Frank's gone. And the issues persist. The problems don't get any better. You got to pick the interim, and you've got to figure out the property assessment fiasco. You've got to fire Gail McCann-Beatty, get her out. Right or wrong, she's been the property assessment person for far too long. She's got to be shown the door, and the entire thing needs to be started over from scratch. That's what has to happen right now in Jackson County. And then from there, you worry about the stadiums and the teams and figure something out on that front. But the stadiums and teams cannot come first. This county cannot replace Frank White and then be tone deaf enough to be like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make sure that we figure out how to make sure the Chiefs and the Royals stay first. No, you better take care of the little guy first. You better at least announce a plan for the little guy first before you go out there and worry about the billionaire sports owners. And I say this as a Chiefs fan and a Royals fan, except for when they're playing the Mets. That's it. You better worry about your average resident first as you guys plan out the future of this county without Frank White. 913-408-7957 on the text line. Pete, time to give George Brett a swing at the gig. No, we're not. No, we're done with the baseball players for now, okay? All right? I mean, we love them. But let George be George. Okay, George learns from Frank what not to do. And running a county is not something that we want George Brett doing. And I love George, but with all due respect, I don't think that's something he wants to do, and I don't think that's something that he should be doing. On the text line, Pete, I hope the Monarchs have a good pension plan. Wow, you guys are rolling here this morning. You guys are rolling. That's outstanding.
Got my champion shirt on today, Monarchs.
Yes, exactly. You got your Monarchs gear on there, Mark. Libby Waldo, what's your question? Libby, good morning.
I told Marty.
Go ahead, Libby. What's your question?
Okay, I had a friend out in California that texted me last night and asked, is it true that it doesn't matter who they elect to be the kick-in for executive, they have to be a Democrat?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
That's fair. Frank White was a Democrat. The replacement has to be a Democrat. Good question, and I think that is completely fair. Got to be a Democrat until the election next year, when then Jackson County residents can elect a Republican. John's got his I voted sticker.
Yeah, I brought my I voted sticker in today.
There you go.
Hey, we can't have George Brett replacing him, dude. You had me wake him up one time at spring training. We cannot have that kind of a rapport with the next county executive, right?
That's right. One of my favorite stories on air here at KCMO was when, sadly, Rush Limbaugh died. George Brett was a good friend of Rush's. I got a hold of George. He said he would come on the show to talk about Rush Limbaugh, his friend, passing away. And I said, great, we'll do 7:05. He says, sounds good. We call him at 7:05 in the morning here in Kansas City. Little do we know, he's in Arizona, where it's 6:05, and John's waking him up because he thought it was 7:05 Arizona time, and I was talking 7:05 Kansas City time without knowing he was in Arizona. So
right, and that whole daylight savings time thing they do, so I don't, Anyway, we can't have him fill in because he's not going to be happy hearing from us.
No, you're right about that. I've reached out since then, and I haven't heard back from George. So
well, there's that.
We got off on the wrong foot. But you know what? Frank never reached back out to me anyway.
Well,
so,
yeah.
Maybe we're just kind of keeping the relationship where it's at. Oh, my goodness. Coming up next on KCMO, I'm starting to wonder if Trump's actually got some 4D chess in him here, and I'll explain next. I'm starting to think that Trump's got some 4D chess going on here. Half the time, I think Trump just says stuff and puts stuff up on social media because he thinks it's funny, because his sense of humor is actually amazing. And then the other half of the time, I actually think there's a plan behind what he's putting up. And the way that his political opponents have reacted and melted down over the last 24 hours, now that the government is shut down as of midnight Eastern time this morning, so we are about 7 hours and 20 minutes into a government shutdown in this country. The obsession by Donald Trump's political opponents is about an AI-generated video that he posted 2 days ago of Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. Chuck Schumer, of course, is the Senate Minority Leader out of New York, and Hakeem Jeffries is the House Minority Leader, also out of New York. And Trump posts this AI video of Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries a couple of days ago, day before the government shutdown was set to begin. And it's all his political opponents will talk about. I mean, they have like some weird obsession with Trump's comedy hour AI-generated clip, and it's all they want to obsess over. And I actually think giving this clip more attention is something that is going to cut in Donald Trump's favor.
Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit. At least for a while, until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
So he posted that 2 days ago. Once again, it's AI generated. And for the last 48 hours now, all you've heard is Trump's political opponents basically doing what they've done going back to his first term, which is call him racist. Despite the fact that what you're seeing is a shift in demographics, where older white people are becoming more in line with the Democratic Party, and younger people, and notably younger people of color in particular, Hispanics, to a large degree, and to a lesser degree, Black Americans, but also younger ones are shifting to the right. You're starting to see people embrace the Republican Party in demographics that rarely ever have. So they're going back to this old playbook of Trump posting this AI-generated video of Chuck Schumer saying what he just said, alongside Hakeem Jeffries, who's sitting there in a sombrero with the music playing in the background. And I'm like, this could not have worked out better for Trump. And I don't know for certain whether or not this was part of the plan, or if it was just like Trump sitting back and someone shows him the video. He's like, that's funny. Put that on my Truth Social. Like, I don't want to give too much credit because I don't know the answer here, but I do know this. The way that his political opponents have zeroed in on this video has actually given the video more life, more attention. It's gotten millions of more people to see the video. And notice how what they're saying about the video is not like, hey, what Trump said there is just wrong. It's like, well, that's racist. That's just the thing, the crutch that they lean on every single time. That's it. So you got Chuck Schumer responding to it yesterday. Hakeem Jeffries is saying this as well.
And Mr. President, the next time you have something to say about me, don't cop out through a racist and fake AI video. When I'm back in the Oval Office, say it to my face. Say it to my face.
Yeah. You can hear the wheels spinning for Hakeem Jeffries as he's trying to think about how he's going to say this exactly, John.
Do you know his UN speech set off this same thing in London?
Yeah.
He said the terrible, and so they're like trying to call him racist, but then all of a sudden, even the supporters of the mayor going, he was right about the crime stats.
Yeah.
So it is, yes, he's doing this worldwide right now.
He is. He's all over it. And then Hakeem Jeffries added this.
¡Órale! ¡Arriba! ¡Arriba!
Yeah, that was the end of Hakeem Jeffries' speech. Oh, my goodness gracious. But right now, we sit here with the government shutdown, and I was reaching out to people around Kansas City government, and I'm like, all right, tell me what's going on here, guys. What impact is this going to have in Kansas City? And we're going back and forth, and I'm trying to understand what they're saying here. And they're like, well, it probably means all grant-funded work will stop. That would include projects and programs. And I'm like, what does that mean? Are these projects going on? Or are we just talking about processing grants that may end up with jobs and projects here in Kansas City? Like, what are we talking about here? And one person in Kansas City government said, stop asking questions. Just talk about Frank White tomorrow. I'm like, this is not helping your cause. I'm trying to be fair here and give a lay of the land to Kansas City as to what this government shutdown means for Kansas City. And basically, it's like, well, this might impact certain grants that are going through the system right now. So nothing. I mean, we do have 30,000 federal employees here. IRS, FBI, VA, the bulk of that. They'll be home for the time being. They will end up getting back pay on the back end whenever this shutdown does end. So we know that that's going to happen for the tens of thousands of government employees, federal government employees that we have in Kansas City. But outside of that, I do know the airport is functioning just fine right now. I reached out to folks to get a lay of the land on the airport, and the airport is running just like normal. You will notice nothing different up at the airport. There could be some problems with security up at the airport, as I understand it, if this thing exceeds 30 days. Because, as I was told, security is paid ahead of time, about a month ahead of time. So they'll be all right up at the airport for the time being. You will not notice any changes. But if this thing does continue on for, let's say, more than a month, and Trump did have a 35-day shutdown during his first term, that's where you could end up seeing a problem or two. Yesterday was a show in Virginia. Let's be clear. This is right out of Trump's playbook. The show was to bring all of the top military leaders together in one room and have Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, stand up there and basically say, we are bringing back physical fitness standards that we loosened. And when I say we, I mean the country loosened about a decade ago. We're going back to the old ways. We are going to have physical fitness training. We are going to have standards across the board. That may mean that women will not be in certain combat roles in the United States military. And that's okay. Because men and women, believe it or not, are different.
Talk about a bombshell.
And when you're talking about lives being on the line, you need the best of the best in certain combat roles. So we're going back to the pre-2015 standards. That's how it's going to be. And this was not really about us. It wasn't really about the American people. What it really was about was putting on a show to the rest of the world. To Russia, to China, to the drug cartels, to every other bad actor on the planet. little rocket man over there in North Korea, to remind them that we have the best, baddest military on the planet. And we're going to be proud of the best, baddest military on the planet. And we should be proud every single day of the men and women who serve this military. It was a show. And I'm totally cool with the show. But once again, like everything Trump does, somehow his opponents end up trying to figure out how to support fat people in the military. It's like, nope. This is one you really don't want to go down this road. You just don't do it. Save yourself the time, please. Please. He's totally breaking them one day at a time. It's unbelievable. Like, this was one of those moments yesterday where if you're MSNBC or CNN and you want to rag on Trump or something, I mean, just blame him for the shutdown. Just do that. Like, we know you're going to do it. Just do it. That's fine. We know how that game is played. Everybody finger points and you pick your side and you move on with your day. But actually hearing from people on cable news and even on broadcast television, knocking the speech by Pete Hegseth, knocking the plan by the president, the commander-in-chief, and Pete Hegseth on bringing back more stringent physical fitness to the military is not a road that even I thought they might go down as much as they did. And just take a listen to what you heard yesterday. This is, where do we want to start here? Let's go to The View. Sonny Hostin yesterday.
It also didn't make a lot of sense to me that he was saying that he was going to toughen physical standards and review the anti-hazing policy by sort of implementing a hazing policy. And then also he said he was going to return to the highest male standard for combat positions because the troops were fat.
Yeah.
I don't understand how that was supposed to be an uplifting message for our military.
Maybe he's referring to Colonel Sanders.
It was really a bizarre thing.
Maybe he was thinking about you, Joy. I don't know. But first off, he didn't call the military fat. What he did say is we all have to lead by example. That's what he was saying. And that's a good message in private business and the military. Lead by example, right? We all have worked for people where they are not leaders by example. They go out there and they have this do what I say, not what I do mentality. And that's not what Pete Hegseth is saying. He's saying, I'm going to lead the way on this. I'll be with you every step of the way. But it's the job of the leaders in this room to make sure that you are all leading by example. And yes, we want the best, the brightest, and the fittest to be in the United States military, John.
Personal accountability? There's that A word the left is allergic to, and that's the basis of their rejection.
Yes, that is exactly right. And considering, we spent 4 years looking at guys in dresses in U.S. military outfits, I'm pretty much totally fine and more than accepting of this world that Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump are creating for the U.S. military. And you know what? I guarantee you this is going to be wildly popular within the ranks. And I know there's many of you who have served, did serve, and I can't imagine being against this. It's not about being an anti-woman in the military thing. Pete Hegseth didn't say that. What he said was for certain combat missions, the standards will be very high. And they should be very high in certain combat missions. Doesn't mean that you can't be in the military. There's a lot of levels to being in the military. But there are certain combat missions where we must have the absolute best of the best, the fittest of the fittest. Doesn't matter which gender you are, but if you can't cut it, we can't have you.
It's as if there were females out there who aren't fit enough to pass the test anyway. I've seen a lot of mixed martial arts fighters, females, and I'll bet Sharice Davis could probably pass it.
Yeah, she probably could pass it. You're right about that. I mean, at least most levels of what would be required to be in the U.S. military. I don't know about the toughest, but, she could probably pass most of them.
Well,
I'd give you that
in
much.
The squared circle. So.
Yeah, that's sure. Absolutely.
Not afraid to take a punch.
No, that's for darn sure. You're right about that. So this was not something that was intended to be anti-anybody, anti-woman, I mean, I guess it was anti-fat. If you want fat people in the military, I suppose, yeah, it's anti-fat. But you tell me why it's beneficial to have looser standards for physical fitness in the United States military. What's the benefit of that? There is none. And anybody with an ounce of common sense understands that and knows that. But they just couldn't help themselves last night. This was also from MSNBC.
But other individuals who are supposed to be leadership are using this kind of language. I call that the meritocracy myth, and it feels as though that myth of meritocracy, this idea that the women and the people of color, the LGBTQ folks, they are all there because of some help or some preference. That idea is a lie, but it feels as like it's a lie that they feel like Hegseth especially has to tell, because then they can twist the narrative, they can twist the truth, he can hide excellence. It gives cover for his own mediocrity because he is unqualified to be there.
They also had that line, he had that line about diversity isn't our strength, unity is our strength, which made me wonder whether or not there is room for diverse opinions, diverse races, religions, in his sense of unity.
Here we go again. The R word. Everyone and everything is racist. When all else fails, turn to the R word. That's what they did. No, the point is, what makes our military men and women great is that what they believe in at their core is a love to defend their country, America, the United States. Not about black, white, Asian, Hispanic, male, female. That's not what makes the military great. What makes it an incredibly cohesive unit, what makes it the best and the baddest military on the planet is love of country. That's it. Not what people look like. But when you go to a cable news panel and that's what they obsess over every day and they try to apply that to the military, that's the kind of nonsense analysis that you end up getting. Chris in Kansas City is first up. Chris, good morning. You're on KCMO. What's happening, man?
Good morning, Pete. So I love what Hegseth, the Secretary of War, said yesterday. All these people, and it's probably less than 1% of the American population that are challenging or criticizing his new policy. I would ask them, what do we see any type of DEI policies, fat people that are out of shape across any one of our enemies, China, Iran, North Korea? I mean, I can go on and on. And that is the honest question, is that if we're going to have a military that's going to stand up against, these countries that want to annihilate and basically shut down and crush the U.S., and we need to make sure that we can, that we're in a position to, to defend our country by having policies that make sense and are not the antithesis of what our enemies are doing.
That's exactly right. I mean, you're spot on there, Chris. And I would challenge anybody who is against, and like you said, I think it's a very small minority of the country, Chris, to your point, but they get this oversized microphone and platform on especially television news in particular, to say, look at the worst actors on the planet. Look at our enemies. Are they all about diversity of looks? Big, small, round, thin, white, black? Or do they just say, give me the best guys and gals, and they're going to be our fighters, and then we'll let the chips fall where they may?
What do the critiques say about themselves, actually? Right? Yeah. They implied stuff that Hegseth didn't say.
Well, that's true, too.
So what are they saying?
Yeah. Well, because they want to operate the military like they do, the DEI panel at MSNBC.
You're right.
That's really what they're trying to do here.
Right.
And that's not what we're supposed to be doing. Now, if you missed it, the president did give, with all due respect to the president, Pete Hegseth gave a great speech, and then the president went on for an hour and 15 minutes, and it was just too long. But did you hear that he dropped the N-word? Oh, yeah. You didn't hear that? Yeah, no, he used it yesterday. He did. No, the president gave an hour and 15-minute speech after Pete Hegseth where he talked about military standards being beefed back up again to kind of pre-2015 levels. And the president gave a, to be honest, meandering 75-minute speech where if I'm a general, I mean, that's testing those guys right there. Okay. I mean, how many of them had to hit the head or something, and they got to sit there and listen to that for an hour and 15 minutes? The one thing about Trump, he will get up there and give you some funny lines. You just got to wait for the funny lines sometimes, right? You got to kind of dig into the funny lines. And over this hour and 15-minute speech, here was the funny line, one of the funny lines, where the president discusses the N-word.
Over to the coast of Russia, just to be careful, because we can't let people throw around that word. I call it the N-word. There are two N-words, and you can't use either of them. You can't use either of them. And frankly, if it does get to use, we have more than anybody else.
Does he mean we have more of which N-word than anybody else? I'm still trying to figure that part out. We need some clarification on that. Can you get on that there, John? In the
I
newsroom?
got it.
Okay. All right.
I'm just junior jumble puzzle.
I love how he does. I don't know how he does it with a straight face, though. We can't use, there's two N-words. We can't use either N-word around here. Don't want to use the N-word, please. No N-words. We don't like to use the N-word. I mean, this is also testing the generals because they're supposed to sit there and be stone-faced. They can't laugh. They can't cheer. Trump's telling them they can cheer yesterday, but I was reading from people in the military that they're required not to cheer and just kind of sit there and then stand at attention and salute the commander-in-chief. But I'd be sitting there. I mean, that would get me kicked out of the military. I'd be bent over laughing at this guy. He's so funny with this stuff. We can't, sir, don't use the N-word, please. No, there's two N-words. We don't use either N-word. But if it comes down to using the N-word, we have more N-words than they do. I'd just be dead. But, knowing your strengths and weaknesses is an important part of life. And I would know that I could not be in the military for many reasons, including the fact that I'd be too busy laughing at Trump's jokes if I was put in situations like that. Paul in Kansas City. What's up, Paul?
Hey, Pete, the other meltdown the left had yesterday was they were like, oh, my gosh, we pulled all these generals off their command post. We pulled General Patton out of the Battle of the Bulge and relieved him with Third Army. The Chinese are going to overrun Taiwan. The Middle East is going to be flooded with Hamas because our generals are sitting in Quantico. Give me a break. There's not much difference between a brigade commander or a full bird colonel, Pete, than a one-star general. I'm just telling you.
Well, that's a good point as well there, Paul. What'd you think of the N-word line, too?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out where he was going with that. There's got to be a conclusion to that. Yeah, if I was sitting in there in uniform, I'd be like, oh, man, is it lunchtime yet? We got to keep going.
Let's be honest. I mean, you're right about that. Listen, he's funny in these moments, but between following up Erica Kirk last week at the Charlie Kirk Memorial Service and now following up Pete Hegseth yesterday, Trump has been in two fairly tough situations where he's asked to speak after two superstars get up there and give these incredible speeches, and you just can't follow them up. Sometimes you got to know when to keep it short, sweet, get to your point, and then get out,
That's exactly right. You can tell when he kind of lifts off the teleprompter, I'm like, don't go there. Just stay on the teleprompter.
No, that's asking too much. You know it is, Paul.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Pete.
See you later, man. That's too much. Well, that's Rule 11 here on the show on KCMO. Do not use the N-word, either of them. You can use this N-word, though.
He's a nut job.
You can use that N-word. That's the only N-word allowed here on KCMO Talk Radio. I put this up on X yesterday. I was going through YouTube looking for some old Frank White clips, and I found the old video from going back to, 13 years ago, so 2012. 2011, technically. No, yeah, this one came out December of 2011. And that is when Frank White was let go from the Royals broadcast booth. And then, of course, the rest is history. Frank White gets into politics. He gets appointed to replace the prior Jackson County executive. And then he ends up, of course, running for election, runs for re-election. And then yesterday he gets recalled 85% to 15%. You can't find anything or any issue in this country where 85% of Americans are on the same page. And we found it in Jackson County, Missouri yesterday when it came to recalling Frank White. 65,000 of you showing up and saying, we're done with Frank. He's done. He's finished. Over. Sayonara. See you later.
That'd be Kauffman Stadium sold out 1.5 times, I guess. Right? Next, about 42,000 on the World Series. They cram people in.
Yeah, no, that's a good number. That's a lot of people showing up to vote out Frank. And I found the clip from 2011 when Frank White was shown the door from the Royals broadcast team. And I thought to myself, man, if they just kept him around the broadcast booth, the last 10 years of Frank White in politics would have been avoidable. If they knew what was to come, and this is not John Sherman, right? This predates all John Sherman, so I know some of you want to blame.
Yeah, true.
It'd be like, John no, you can't blame John Sherman for this one. This has nothing to do with him. It's all David Glass. It's all that era of Royals ownership that decided to show Frank White the door. And while this all predated my time in Kansas City, I mean, you guys can confirm or deny this, but from what I gathered, Frank was in many ways too critical of the team for the broadcast booth.
I liked Frank when he did the broadcast. They deemed him too critical. He was telling it like it was.
Exactly.
It's a crap team.
Yeah. And I can appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly.
Lean years here.
Yeah. That was, of course, before the swing up towards the World Series in 2015. So if that's why Frank was shown the door, well, that's the Royals being soft. If he was calling it like it was, he could have had that job, obviously, forever. He could still be doing that job today because, come 2014, 2015, there would have been only nice things to say about the team.
Sure.
And he probably would have had good analysis of the team when it was playing well. But ownership decided that Frank was too tough on the team, so they showed him the door. And then, of course, he ends up getting into politics. He was first running for Jackson County Legislature in 2014. He won the election of an at-large seat. In January of 16, Frank White was appointed county executive by the legislature following the resignation of Mike Sanders. And then in November of 16, he was elected to the same position for a 2-year term, got reelected in 2018 and in 2022. And then he ends up getting recalled, of course, yesterday. And it's actually a sad story arc for Frank White, who's the hometown kid, of course, the hometown ball player, the hometown broadcaster, and then ends up in politics. And you think, all right, it's county legislature. How much can people really despise a county legislator? Well, a lot is obviously the answer. And it was all self-inflicted wounds. And that's why I just don't have any sympathy for Frank here. I know a lot of people will say around town, they met him, he's a gentleman, he's a nice guy, and that's all well and good. But I have sympathy for the homeowners in this county who got totally railroaded by the assessment process over the last several years and had a county executive who was so aloof, who was so out of touch, he didn't really care to do anything about it. He was a no-show to his own legislative meetings. And I've seen a lot of this on social media, people admitting that, yeah, it was time for Frank to go. But I feel bad for him because he was a great player. He was a gentleman. All that's well and good, but it only gets you so far. When you're talking about Jackson County residents who have tried to figure out how to stay in their own homes, not because they can't afford the mortgage payment, but because they can't afford the property taxes based on a jacked up assessment, that's where all of my sympathy and all of my empathy goes. Not to Frank White because, well, he's a nice guy. There's a lot of nice guys who make major mistakes and they impact a lot of people. And that's what happened in Jackson County over the last several years. And that's why the outcome was as overwhelming as it was yesterday.
Yeah, I could have sympathy for a guy who said, well, sorry, that was a bad assessment here. We're trying to fix that. Mm-hmm. But there was nothing.
There was nothing.
It was as if it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And then denial that it did.
Yes. And then he would play this card, like during the Royals-Chiefs stadium vote. He'd say, well, I'm against giving the Royals and the Chiefs more taxpayer money because I'm fighting for the little guy. I want to be a good steward of the taxpayer money. Josh.
I'm getting pissed now.
Hold on a second here. Really?
2 to 2:30 each Monday.
Right. Where you been?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, you've got the biggest. I mean, this thing was a scandal in Jackson County with these assessments. The biggest scandal, arguably, in the history of the county, which is saying something for Jackson County.
Right.
Okay? And you're going to use the Chiefs and the Royals as your punching bag and then do it under the guise of I'm fighting for the little guy? Please, show a little respect for the taxpayer here.
Show some RESPICT.
Just a little respect. Put a little respect on the name. That's all I'm asking here, as the Rev would say. All right, because that is such an insult to everyday Jackson County residents to be like, yeah, I'm standing up to the Chiefs and the Royals because I want to stand up for the little guy. Dude, you've had multiple opportunities every time the assessments come out, going back to 2019. You've had an opportunity to stand up for the little guy, and you basically told them to pound sand. Bob's in Lee's Summit as we approach 8 o'clock. What's up, Bob?
Hi, how you doing? Hey, I was going to make a comment on politics in general concerning something like this. You know what? If you screw your electorate out of money, they're going to flush you down the toilet, and that's exactly what happened.
You know, I wish it happened more frequently, actually. I wish people came to the same conclusion on all politicians. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen. But you're right. In this case, people finally had enough, and they said, we're done.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often enough. It should happen on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the guys and gals in D.C., right? Across the board.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, every turn of the road, they're screwing the country out of money.
Well,
it's not a local country, it's the whole country.
I mean, they're voting for budgets that are devaluing our dollars every single day.
Exactly. That's exactly what they're doing. And it's all by design.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Well, yeah, I think you're right about that to a large extent. But that's what you're seeing play out. So, in many ways, Frank White's recall is a story of how things can get so bad, Republicans and Democrats can actually come together on something. And for that, I'll be optimistic as I sit here on a Wednesday morning. Little bumper back for Frank White. There you go. Mark's got his Monarchs gear on this morning after Frank White gets recalled 85-15. Boy, that is poetic justice, is it not? Helps win the 85 World Series, and 40 years later gets recalled with 85% of the vote going against him. My gosh, you cannot make this stuff up. If I told you that 40 years ago, I know Mark and I weren't alive, but you'd be like, whoa, that is quite an about face for the guy.
And Kansas City bringing the Monarchs back probably wouldn't have been on anybody's bingo card, too.
That's true. And Frank going to one meeting the entire year as the county executive while going to, as far as I can tell, every game for the Monarchs, tapping tushes down the first baseline. What a time to be alive. Now, we got that last night, of course. It was a blowout to recall Frank White. But also we have now a government shutdown that is 10 hours old. And the video that keeps on giving, that continues to get a ton of run, is what the President of the United States posted on social media a couple of days ago. It was an AI-generated video of Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. Schumer, of course, is the Senate Minority Leader out of New York. Hakeem Jeffries is the House Minority Leader out of New York as well. And Trump puts up this video on social media that is now getting all the attention from his political opponents and is actually working out, whether he meant it to or not, as basically 4D chess. If you missed it, here was the original video.
Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
That was the video that the president posted, AI generated, calling out Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. And Hakeem Jeffries is standing in the video next to next to Chuck Schumer in a sombrero with a mustache that was also AI generated. That's why that music was in the background. So Talk about stuff you can't make up, man. If I told you this 10 years ago, we'd have a president who was posting artificial intelligence videos of his opponents, and it would sound exactly like the politician, which that did sound exactly like Chuck Schumer. This AI stuff is getting scary. And it would happen on the eve of a government shutdown that is now 10 hours old, and all anyone is talking about is that video on cable news. You'd be like, you got to be kidding me. Nope, this is the world that we find ourselves in. This is our country in 2025. So Hakeem Jeffries responded to this yesterday, and here's what he had to say.
¡Órale! ¡Arriba! ¡Arriba!
Wrong clip. Hold on. All right, here's Hakeem Jeffries yesterday responding to that video.
And Mr. President, the next time you have something to say about me, don't cop out through a racist and fake AI video. When I'm back in the Oval Office, say it to my face. Say it to my face.
Say it to my face, Mark. That's what I say to Mark when he's talking smack behind my back. You say it to my face. That's what you do, okay? And Mark usually will say it to my face.
Right.
And then I take it like a man. But because this video resulted in the Democrats talking more about the video, it actually is helping Trump by bringing more attention to the original video. You know, they've been using the R word. It's like Trump was saying, we don't say the N word around here. Of course, he's talking about nuclear, but, you know, it obviously means something else as well. But they've been using the R word against the guy forever. And by the way, you are seeing demographic shifts within both political parties. Democrat Party is getting paler. The Republican Party is getting darker, more diverse. It's slowly happening, but it is happening in real time, especially and most notably with Hispanic voters. That's why you're seeing the biggest shifts, right? So their whole thing about like racist this, racist that doesn't really work. But this video resulted in all of cable news talking about it yesterday. Hakeem Jeffries going to the podium and talking about it yesterday. Some member of Congress named Teresa Fernandez, of course, they send her up there to talk about this as well.
That's right. And then what does that shameful man do? After a meeting where you're supposed to be working out details, where you're supposed to be negotiating a deal, you post something that draws a sombrero and a mustache on the leader with whom you're supposed to be.
That was Teresa Fernandez with the fake outrage about the sombrero that was put on Hakeem Jeffries' head.
That's not the way she said it.
You're right. Sombrero?
Oh, look at that.
Is that how she said it? Better than Jill Biden's boat, I guess.
All right.
Arriba, arriba.
Yeah. Good job there, Mark.
As long as she rolls the R on restroom.
Yeah.
Fine, but if it just pops up now and again.
So by acting outraged over the video, they're giving the video more life. They're getting it seen by more people. And the average person, the average guy or gal that isn't hyper partisan on the left side is going to watch the video and say, pretty funny. Even if you're in the middle and you're like, I wish my president wouldn't post videos like that. You're going to laugh at it if you have any sense of humor. So you're going to give the video a shot. You're going to watch it because of how much attention there has been on it. If Trump just posted that and it just went on Truth Social, let's be honest, no one actually has Truth Social, okay? Let's be real about this thing here. I don't have a truth. Most people don't have a truth. They see Trump's videos because they end up getting copied over to Facebook or X or Instagram or somewhere else. But then to have this massive outrage in the midst of this shutdown about a Trump AI video is not actually helping your cause in the way that you think it will. So I don't know if this was just Trump stepping into 4D chess or if he actually planned it out this way, but it actually is working and cutting in his favor right now, John.
Well, the playbook goes back to page 1 because this is like the how to pick up women video from Trump a long time ago. They think they're going to create a lot of outrage. But
Mike,
it's only in their echo chamber.
Go ahead, Mike. You're on KCMO.
Dude, I'm sorry. All they do is prove how little of a sense of humor they have. They can't laugh at themselves. Jeffrey should have said, hey, I don't know if I've ever looked that good, because he looked way better in the picture. And all I'm saying is, I'm listening to you and listening to his response. All I can think of Nacho Libre. Say it to my face. Say it again. Say it again. And he keeps trying. It just creates more memes in your mind. And now Camacho is going to get some business because everybody's watching that going, I'm hungry. This is hilarious. It's hilarious. Say it to my face. Say it again. Nacho, come on.
You know, if there is any Mexican restaurant that puts a big old photo of Hakeem Jeffries outside of it in the sombrero, yes, I will be a customer for life.
100%. That was awesome.
Oh, my goodness. I don't know. Whoever wants to step to the plate, I like them all. You mentioned Camacho, Mi Ranchito. I mean, there's plenty of good spots around town. I don't want to just mention the chains. But do the Steak and Shake deal, right? Steak and Shake leaned in to honoring Charlie Kirk after his assassination 3 weeks ago today. Can you believe that? Why not just lean into the El Jefe version of Hakeem Jeffries? I don't know. It's just a thought there. Oh, my goodness gracious.
Hakeem Jefes.
Oh, jeez. All right. Coming up on KCMO, what are the local politicians who are actually in charge of replacing Frank White saying about who that person is going to be? Because that is the next step here in this after Frank got recalled yesterday. Who and when? We'll try to answer it next on KCMO. So what next? Frank White out. 85% of you saying we are done with Frank White as county executive. So what is next? Here is what Sean Smith, Jackson County legislator, said this morning right here on KCMO.
So, ironically, for a few days, nothing. Frank's still our county executive until the vote's certified, and that's expected to be next Wednesday, so a week from today. In the meantime, there will be some measures put in place, I think, just to make sure that he doesn't exercise his authority improperly. We want to make sure we preserve everything for the person who's coming in to be able to take care of. Biggest thing is we do have to pick a new county executive as a legislature. There's 9 of us, and there's been a few names floated. The list is by no means closed. I think we want to kind of let people know now that this is real. If somebody's a Democrat and they're a voter in Jackson County and they have the kind of experience that would help us get this county back on its feet, that would be great for us to know about them and that they would be interested in serving.
So that was Sean Smith. He cannot be the guy. He's a Republican on the legislature. It has to be a Democrat. I have no problem with that at all. That if you recall someone, you have to replace them temporarily with somebody from the same political party. But there are conservative Democrats who are interested in potentially being the next county executive. That would be someone like a Dan Tarwater, someone like a Phil Lavoda, who, have made it clear they are interested in that role. So those people are definitely out there, John, and I think that those people would be well served to be considered for the Jackson County interim executive role.
Said individual will have that role until the end of 2026, and then everybody's up for election, and so then you could vote for Sean if you chose to do so if he runs.
Yeah, Sean could run for county executive next year.
But it won't be for at least a year.
Yeah, he cannot be the interim county executive in Jackson County. But heck, he may want to run for Congress. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true.
Now that, he ran for Congress against Cleaver, and he got his clock cleaned. I mean, it's not his fault. It's just the makeup of the map. But now that 5th district that Cleaver's in is going to look a lot different and lean Republican, he may end up running for Congress. Don't forget, there are a lot of people who are Republicans in the Kansas City area who now see a winnable congressional seat that really never was winnable. Where's Jacob Turk? They got to dig out Jacob Turk. He'll show back up, Just saying, there's going to be people out there. So what about somebody on the legislature? Could that person potentially be the interim county executive?
There's been a couple of names. I think they've maybe been on your show. There's Phil Lavoda. There's Dan Tarwater. I think those are great options. My job is to keep an open mind until we have all the options in front of us. That's how I legislate. That's how I want to make big decisions in my life. I don't want to narrow my options and until I have to.
What are the odds you think that the replacement for Frank is currently on the legislature?
Pretty slim, I think. I won't say zero, but I would say less than 10%.
And that's fair. And the reason for that is a lot of those folks on the legislature, they have beef between each other, and also some of them want to be the next county executive. So for those that want to be the next county executive, they don't want to select one of their peers as the interim executive, because what happens then? You have a leg up going into the election next year. That's how Frank became the executive. He was selected to replace Mike Sanders. He was already on the legislature. They picked him to be the interim guy, and then he won the next election. So it gives you a huge leg up because people can already see you in there. And you have access, obviously, to fundraising and important people and all that stuff that suddenly works in your favor. So I'm with Sean. I don't think the interim executive is currently someone who is on the legislature. But now we kind of wait and see how this plays out. And Patrick Toohey and I were talking about this last hour, and he's like, well, what changes now? Well, that's what changes now. We start the process of figuring out who actually can be the county executive, can show up to meetings, can give a damn, and can actually say, I want to do this job, and I'm willing to work with people on the legislature. I'm willing to figure out how to fix the main problems that we have, property assessments, and I'm willing to talk to the Chiefs and the Royals, all things that Frank White, frankly, did not show any interest in doing over the last couple of years.
I'm with people on the critique, and I understand the notion that it doesn't fix anything, but yet it does. You've got to start somewhere to get the new process going, right? And so we're not looking at this as if it were an election result in the sense of we're choosing a candidate over another one. This is a recall. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we don't know what comes next exactly, but we know it can't get much worse.
It can't. So last night, Channel 41 was out and about talking to voters, and here's what that sounded like on KSHB.
The taxes being raised up.
The property tax issue.
Oh, my taxes went up.
The signatures have been gathered, the court battles waged, and now comes the verdict from voters during a recall election.
I voted to recall Frank. I feel bad about it, but it seems like the right answer.
The sentiment wasn't universal.
I think everybody makes mistakes. Everybody does some good things. I don't think he's done enough to be recalled.
Yeah, I guess in that guy's eyes, Frank would have had to kill somebody to get recalled.
You know, I think it was true when he said, I don't think Frank's done enough. Right?
That he should have stopped there.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. They found the one guy. Give that reporter a raise. Do you know how hard it was yesterday to find somebody willing to go on camera? It was hard enough to find a voter who voted to keep Frank White. Only 15% of voters voted to keep Frank White. And then to find a guy willing to go on camera. I mean, Woke 41, give that bro a raise. I don't know who the reporter is on that story, but give him a raise, KSHB. He deserves it. I don't think he did enough. I don't know what he was waiting for, but yeah. Even the lady who said there, I feel bad about it. It goes to show you that Frank was well-liked and respected before all of this, before he got into the political arena. And then it just went up in flames. You know, the reputation, the job as the county executive, the aloofness that he had while doing the job, the lack of perceived caring and sympathy for people who were literally on the verge, if not having to sell their homes because they couldn't afford to stay in their homes. It really is a sad downfall. As much as I think this is a good day for the Jackson County taxpayer and the Jackson County resident, I do admit that there is a sadness to the way this ends for Frank White. Because Frank White, let's be honest, when it comes to the public eye, he's, 70-ish? He may come back for some Royals game or two or some event or two where they bring back the old ball players. But I don't imagine he's going to have really any notable public presence in this town again. And based on how it started, based on him being a hometown kid and obviously what his life was until about 10 years ago, there is a sadness to that. But in the end, the voters decided, and the voters made the right call.